Season 2 of Shadow and Bone is out, and I may or may not have spent $30 to get this Milo plushie from Netflix. It says Milo here, and the collar says no mourners, no funerals. Hey y'all, what's up? I'm Sabrina and welcome back to my book nook. Let's start off with some exciting news. It's this channel's 2-year anniversary! Ah! Yay! I started this channel 2 years ago because I was bored and I wanted to talk about books. Here we are now, 1,000 subscribers later. It's finally time for me to do an updated bookshelf tour. Last one I did was back in August of 2021, so it's been about a year and a half, and it's gotten to the point where I've bought so many books that my bookshelf physically can't fit anymore. And I bet you're thinking like, Sabrina, you have the exact same bookcase as you did a year and a half ago. How is it that it's still only full now? Basically, I inherited this bookshelf from my sister, and then I added a little baby one on the right, which I will show later. Because it was my sister's bookshelf, it had a lot of her old books, which I don't necessarily read, or I didn't really like it. Like I've said before, I don't really like watching a lot of bookshelf tour videos, so if this video seems a little disoriented, that might be why, but here's the plan. First, I'm going to give an overall view of my bookshelf, and then I'm going to take you sort of shelf by shelf, go through every title on the bookcase, and pull a couple favorites out. I should probably get started now. Alright, starting off like how we did last time, we're gonna start with a part of my bookshelf that's not really a part, but is one of my favorite. This is my Jessie May Lee and Ben Barnes shrine. As y'all know, Ben Barnes is my husband and Jessie May Lee is my wife. So I just love having a little shrine dedicated to them. They're watching over me every time I film a video, every time I read a book. They're just always with me. Some people may call this creepy. I call it, it's creepy actually. It's a little bit creepy. But anyways, we are going to start off with the 2-story bookcase. And then we're just gonna go shelf by shelf. All my shelves, by the way, sort them by genre, and so this one is sort of classic, non-fiction, your typical English class book. Just gonna pull a couple of my favorites and talk about them. A lot of favorites, but I'm just gonna briefly talk about each of them. By the way, I forgot to mention, I have a very long TBR, so a good chunk of these books on my bookshelf are not read, or not a good chunk, but it's a hefty amount. So if you're going through the video thinking, oh my god, why does she have so many books that she hasn't even read on her bookshelf? I will tell you why. It's because I make impulsive decisions that temporarily make me feel better about myself. That often results in going to Barnes & Noble and buying books. I'm pretty sure the workers there know me at this point. Don't do what I do, and I am not an example to follow. Okay, thank you. So, starting off with the first book, Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I read this in English class. I'm actually very surprised by how much I enjoyed this book. I even tabbed it a little bit. I found the protagonist, Holden Caulfield, to be a lot more relatable than I would like to admit. By the way, he's not supposed to be relatable. If you relate to him, please seek help immediately. Anyways, I think that American literature is actually something I'm increasingly growing more interested in. I think this book is not only a good example of classic American literature, but also the coming-of-age novel. Emma by Jane Austen. I think my first Jane Austen novel that I read will always have a special place in my heart, especially because the 2020 version of Emma is actually my favorite movie ever, which I have a poster of right there. And my all-time favorite quote is from this book, which is spoken by Mr. Knightley. I'm sure that most of you already know what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to repeat it just for my viewers' sanity's sake, because I feel like I talk about it too much on this channel. No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. This one I also did tab a little bit. I found the writing to be, yes, incredibly depressing, but also incredibly life-changing. I don't think I've ever felt as seen by a book as I have this, which again is very deeply, what was I gonna say, scary. If you relate to this book at all, seek help. His writing is very raw. It's very human. We've Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I read this for a book club at my school and I absolutely loved it. Me and my friends in that book club, we usually actually never talk about the book we read, but with this book, we were actually very engaged in discussion. I think it has a very interesting storyline and again, a very unreliable narrator, which I always find engaging. Stop Saving the Planet Environmentalist Manifesto. As you can see, I also tab this one as well. I picked this one up because I was looking for another environmentalist book actually, but I saw this one because the title obviously caught my eye, and I think it's a very good starter pack. Okay guys, if the lighting suddenly looks different, it's because I have to refilm this clip because the first one deleted for no reason at all. First one we have the new Jim Crow. I have read like 20 pages of this and then I stopped. And then here we have 4 books from Jane Austen: Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Emma, and Northanger Abbey, which I have Emma and Sense and Sensibility in separate copies. I don't like reading in this big volume. It just makes me feel like I'm reading a textbook. Then we have Jane Eyre. I have read this. Great Expectations, I have not read. Picture Dorian Gray, I have read. Crime and Punishment, still getting my way through it. You can actually see there's a bookmark stuck in there. And then I have read Emma and I'm getting my way through Sensibility. Bad Feminist, I have read a couple of essays. I'm still about halfway through. Woman, Race, and Class, again, read the first 20 pages and then just kind of stopped. Same with this one, Communist Manifesto. Catcher in the Rye, Great Gatsby. I actually just finished reading this and it was fantastic. Beloved, have read. Their Eyes Are Watching God. Ceremony, Angelus Ashes, have not read. To Kill a Mockingbird, I read this and I hated it. No Longer Human, The House on Mango Street, have not read. This book is anti-racist, which, fun little story about this. I bought it for a school club and then they literally never brought up this book again and I forgot I had it until I started filming this. Stop Saving the Planet, Things Fall Apart, which I have read. The Handmaid's Tale, which I still haven't read. We've Always Lived in the Castle, I've read. The Stranger and Carmilla, I've both read as well. The Sun Also Rises, I bought for English class and then we ended up never reading it. This is Matthias. He's modeled after my little puppy right there. Yeah, I named him Matthias, obviously, after Matthias from Six of Crows. And then here we have sort of my mass market paper book. So that we have Wuthering Heights, read it, loved it. Another copy of Crime and Punishment, Macbeth, Hamlet, and Romeo and Juliet, all of which I've read, all of which were for English class. A Raisin in the Sun, I've read. Frankenstein, have not read. Howl and Wide Sargasso Sea, I'm still kind of currently reading. 1984, I haven't read this. But yeah, most of these books I've only read because of like school. Some of them I did read for my own entertainment, which I'm proud of. Alright, so starting on the second shelf now, as you can see, or hopefully tell, this is my Harry Potter / Percy Jackson shelf. Whenever I read these books, I regress back into a 7-year-old girl. For starters, I would like to say I absolutely do not support the actions of J.K. Rowling, so I'm just going to pull a couple of my favorite books from this shelf. Can you tell I have a thing for the third books of series? Prisoner of Azkaban. It used to be my favorite book of all time. Not anymore, but it is still definitely a comfort book. Titan's Curse, which is the best in the Percy Jackson series. And then Mark of Athena, which, again, best book in the series. House of Hades might give this one a run for its money, but I love this book so much simply because of the beginning when Percy and Annabeth reunite. Alright, so starting off here, we have the entire Harry Potter series plus The Cursed Child, 2 copies of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and some Hogwarts classics. I also have another copy of The Sorcerer's Stone, because this was my sister's old copy before I bought this entire set. My Little Slytherin tie. I have this one. I think somebody made one for me for my birthday maybe. But this is the official wand I got from Universal Studios. This is Hermione's wand. And then here we have the entire Percy Jackson in the Olympian series. The entire Heroes of Olympus series. The Lost Hero is the only paperback. It's practically falling apart. Fun facts, I actually read the Heroes of Olympus series first. I have the Hidden Oracle and 2 of the Kane Chronicles. This little guy, he is a boba plushie I got from work, and I bring him to every test I take at school for emotional support. Alright, so I don't want to pick favorites, but this is kind of my favorites shelf. I like to think of as the Sabrina shelf. Like, these are my books, mine. It's also definitely more like contemporary lit fit books. So as you can see, I put all my favorite kids on this shelf basically. Starting off with, we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. As y'all know, I am a huge Grishaverse fan, and obviously I would put Six of Crows on this shelf. I'm currently reading The Lives of Saints at my local library, and I'm hoping to get Language of Thorns, the graphic novel, soon, but we'll see how that goes. Six of Crows, amazing, fantastic book. I'm sure all of you have heard of it by now, so I hopefully don't have to explain it. My all-time favorite book, The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I have definitely tabbed it a lot, and I've read it a couple times. I love this book with my whole heart. I know it's pretentious, I know it's actually mainstream, but it's so freaking good. It is the best book ever written, and I'm actually planning on doing a reread soon because I miss this book. Like, I miss the feeling of reading it. And we have Normal People by Sally Rooney, another controversial book, but another heavily tabbed book of mine. I know all the criticisms of this book, I understand them, I hear you, but also at the same time, you know, you just don't get it. You guys just don't get it. Okay, but I get it. I get Sally Rooney. I get her. This is a book that I've gone back to time and time again. Just constant rereads. Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner, which this is actually a signed version because my friend Ada, an absolute angel, got me a signed version for Christmas. And fun fact, I'm actually going to a book signing of hers, so I'm gonna have another signed copy of hers. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It is one of the most heartbreakingly realistic memoirs I've read. Recently there's been a lot of Asian mother-daughter relationship-centered content. It's all been hitting me very hard, and this one particularly, it's definitely a tearjerker. And then here we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, another tearjerker, another absolute heartbreakingly beautiful book. It's definitely what got me into magical realism. I think that it's a very difficult genre to read for sure, but if it's done right, incredibly engaging. I saw a TikTok actually of some girl saying she hated this book, and I reported her video. This was a little plaque that my friend made for me for my birthday, and it was for passing 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, this is really cool. And then here is another plushie that my friend Ada made me. But these two are the twin fantasy dogs from Car Seat Headrest. She even got the nipples right. Starting off with, we have the entire Grishaverse series. It of course bothers me that Rule of Wolves is the only hardcover here, but you know, what can you do? The Secret History by Donna Tartt. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Also read it, and I also really did like it. Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. Read it. Normal People by Sally Rooney. Read it. And Beautiful World, Where Are You? Also read it. Crying in H Mart. Read it. And then Ninth House and Hellbent. Both have read, and this is also signed, by the way. Wow! Oh, can't believe I forgot to mention this, but my Six of Crows copy is also signed and personalized because I got to meet Leigh Bardugo. Ah! Here we go. To Sabrina. Loved it. If We Were Villains by Emma Rio. Read it. I thought it was okay. And then we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold and Tales from the Cafe. I have read this one, obviously. Have not read this one yet. Such a fun age book. Highly read. Absolutely amazing book. Have been meaning to reread it. All's Well and Bunny by Mona Awad. Both have not read it. My Year of Rest and Relaxation, Homesick for Another World, and Eileen, all by Atosha Mosfreg. I have read these two books, and I'm currently still reading Eileen. I started last summer and I still haven't finished it. My Brilliant Friend and Story of a New Name by Elena Ferrante. I have read My Brilliant Friend. I have not read The Story of a New Name yet. I'm actually very proud of myself because I've managed to fill up an entire shelf of just romance books. This one is also color-coded. Yeah, I'm gonna start by pulling some favorites. Very basic picks. I realize I am tired of trying not to be mainstream. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is my favorite Emily Henry book. I love all her books, but I think this one is just, it's too good. I just love how this book subverts romance stereotypes and, I don't know, utilizes them in a new way. And I just think it was such a hilarious read as well. Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood. This one I know is controversial. I understand why a lot of people don't like it. I think Ellie Hazelwood has a very specific type of writing. You either love it or you hate it. And I think that specific type of writing is very fanficky. But I will say, out of all the books on my bookshelf, this book right here is the one that people ask to borrow the most. The Roughest Draft by Emily Werbley and Austin Sigmund Broca. I actually very much enjoyed. I just love romances about like writers. If you like Emily Henry, you're gonna like this book. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. I know this one is another very fan fiction-y type book. I'm pretty sure it was a Wattpad story originally, but it's also relatively new and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought it would. Is it 100 pages too long? Yes, but you know what? I will tell you, I was looking for a hockey player x ice skater romance and I found it. The book answered all my prayers. First, I'm going to show off my little reversible plushie. This side is Sally, named after Sally Rooney, of course. And this side is Lil Hottie. Book Lovers, People We Meet on Vacation, and Beach Read, all by Emily Henry, who is my favorite romance author of all time. She's coming with a new book this month, and I'm actually so freaking excited. The Roughest Draft, Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, read it. The Deal by Elle Kennedy. I actually still have not read this book. The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton, read it. I actually did not like it that much. Better Than Movies by Lynn Painter, read it, liked it. Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, loved it. Not Here to Be Like by Michelle Quash, I read it. Love Hypothesis, Love on the Brain, and Love to Love You, all by Ellie Hazelwood. Of course I have read these, and of course I've reread all of them. When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Was not the biggest fan, but I have read it. Best Served Hot by Amanda Elliott. Just got this, so I haven't read it yet. Red, White, and Royal Blue and I Kiss Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. Read both of them. Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. Read it. Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Read it. The Summer I Turned Pretty, It's Not Summer Without You, and We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han. Read it all in one fucking day. Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. Read it. For Better or Worse by Erin LaRosa. Read it. The Start of Me and You. Read it. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Read it. To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy by Jenny Han as well. I have read this, but also I'd just like to show off this little book nook kit that I made that I literally spent 6.5 hours building. But I binged Abbott Elementary while I was reading it, and it turned out really cute actually. And there's like, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like little details in there as well. Okay, so this shelf is kind of where things start getting messy. I like to think it's contemporary, historical fiction, and mystery. It gets very jumbled. I'm just gonna pull some favorites from here. Yeah, I don't really have that many favorites from the shelf, but if I did, it would probably be these two. Starting off with Ace of Spades by Frida Abike Maide. I haven't read in a while, but I do remember I gave this a very high rating, and I still think it deserves that for sure. And I thought that the story itself was very important. Often, dark academia stories don't get criticized appropriately, but this story handles it right. Chinko by Min Jin Lee, which is a very long, expansive story of this one woman's family, but it also sort of covers a lot of Korean history. I think that just the way it's written is so beautifully told. The Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. I have read all of these. The entire Inheritance Game series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I hate how this final one is a different font. I have read this entire series and I liked it well enough. The Appeal by Janice Hallett, read it. Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, have not read this actually. My Sister the Serial Killer by, I have read this. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, have read it and kind of regret it now. Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes by Eric LaRocca. I have read this. A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee, read it. The Guest List by Lucy Foley, read it. Maidens by Alex Michelades, read it. Ace of Spades by Frida Abike Maide, read it. American Bae, read it. The Last Story of Mia Lee by Nancy Drew Kim, I've read this. Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, read it. And Readers and Lovers, Euphoria, and 5 Tuesdays in Winter by Lily King. I have read these two. I have not read Euphoria yet. The Hired Girl, I have read this. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, I have not read this. Lovely War by Julie Berry, I have read this. Everything I Never Told You and Little Fires Everywhere, I have read Everything I Never Told You. I have not read Little Fires Everywhere. This was good. And here is A Little Surprised Peach. Ada Also Made Me. Alright, so we're on this last shelf of this two-story monstrosity now. And this shelf is another very messy shelf. It kind of has no category. It's like kids book, a little bit of manga, and then some hardcovers, and then just Greek mythology. Alright, so this is kind of a weird selection of favorites. Masterminds by Gordon Corman. This one is a kid's book. My friend recommended it to me, but he failed to mention that it was in the young adult section, not even young adult section. I really liked it, actually. I still think about it a lot, and it's actually a very mind-twisting book. Spy X Family Volume 4. I love this volume so much. I reread it whenever I'm feeling bad. It's just such a comfort one, I think. It's the dog arc, it's the Bond arc. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This one I also read a while ago, but I think about it a lot. I think that the writing was very poetic, lyrical, almost very engaging as well. Wonder. Mastermind by Gordon Corman. The Iron Trial by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. The weirdest duo I've ever heard of. They actually wrote such a fire book. I remember the entire trilogy, and it fucked me up, man. And then we have the first 4 books of the Land of Story series. This series was such a big part of my childhood. Kurt from Glee wrote that. Like, what? The first 2 books in the Crazy Rich Asians series by Kevin Kwan. I've read this one. I have not read this one yet. Falling Leaves by Adeline Yen Ma. I have not read this. Dreams of Joy and Shanghai Girls by Lisa C. I have not read. Claire and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have also not read some manga. I have Chainsaw Man Volume 1, Spy X Family Volume 4, and Tokyo Ghoul Volume 1. I have read these 2. I haven't read Chainsaw Man. I read chapter 1 of this online, but I haven't gone around to reading actual volume 1. I'll Give You the Sun by Jenny Nelson. I have not read this. You Have the Gadfly by Jennifer Miller. Also have not read this. Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. I started reading this, got about 10 pages in, and I stopped. Portrait of a Thief by Gracie Lee. Read this. Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Read this. Babel by R.F. Kuang. I still have not read this. I do want to read at least one R.F. Kuang book before Yellowface comes out. Cry of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I have read this, and I read it in one day if you want to go check that vlog out. Shit ton of books on Greek mythology. I have these 2, which is Percy Jackson, Greek mythology, The Treasury of Greek Mythology, and then Delirious' Book of Greek Myths. I used to check this book out at my school's library so much. I read this every single day when I was a kid. I got it as a birthday gift one year. Moving on to my baby bookcase, but I figured I might do a little mini tour of this on top. It's usually a lot messier, and these are some rocks my sister got for me from the beach like 2 years ago. They're rip-off crystals, basically. This is a remote for my TV. This is a little, what the fuck are they called? Jellyfish plushie I sewed. It's very ratchet. And then here's some candles. And this is my Sad Girls Universe roadmap I tried making. I made this about like a year ago. It was very small then. It's grown so much that it's like not even like a conspiracy theory. It's for sure a thing. These are some vintage postcards I got about like 3 years ago. Stuff I like to think of as my little YA fantasy, but it's like kind of trashy YA fantasy. Not to be confused with this, which is very trashy YA fantasy. Alright, so not a lot of favorite picks from this shelf. Let me just show off my little plushie first. It's like my little octopus because it's also reversible. It has this cute little tiger, furious little tiger. Cool Prince by Holly Black. I actually haven't read this trilogy in a very long time. It's definitely a fan favorite among book readers now, and I do think that the trilogy is very good. I do remember a lot of it being more political than it did being romantic, you know what I mean? And I actually barely remember half the stuff that happened in this book, so maybe I should reread it. But I do remember Jude and Carden, obviously. And then here we have Shattered Me by Tahereh Mafi. I read this entire series in like a week. I am in love with Kenji Kishimoto and Aaron Warner. Like, the two of them are literally the loves of my life. I thought that this book was kind of trashy, but in a very good way, you know what I mean? Like, it's very predictable, but it's good. And it's for dystopian fantasy, it's like you get what you expect. Obviously, the entire Cruel Prince trilogy by Holly Black. I don't like how this is the only hardcover. It pisses me off so much. And then we have the These Violent Delights duology by Chloe Gong, which is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. I've read both of these. We have the entire Maze Runner series, including the Fever Code, which is the prequel to it by James Dashner. And I also read all of this. I do not remember a single thing from this. We have Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I've read this. I'm also convinced that this was just like dreary fanfiction. And then we have The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I don't know why I don't have the rest of the series, but trust me, I did reread the entire Hunger Games series. I'm itching to give the books a reread. Then we have The Young Elites by Marie Lu. I have read this. Renegades by Marissa Myers. I've also read this. And then the entire Lunar Chronicle series by Marissa Myers, which I've also read. I don't know why, but I had a weird obsession with Ferris, which was the Evil Stepmother one. Then we have Heartless, also by Marissa Meyer, another fairy tale retelling. I think this was about the Queen of Hearts. We had The Flame. I still haven't read this, and I got it literally over like a year ago, and it's just been sitting on my bookshelf. Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I have read this. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I have read this. And Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. I've read this, and I thought it was kind of cute because I'm pretty sure these two authors are married, I think. So I put them next to each other. Alright, so this is my actual no category shelf. Like, this one, generally all the books on here I put because I ran out of room on my other shelves, which had a little bit of a category. These, they're just books on a shelf next to each other. We start off by showing this little plushie though. This is the third and final plushie that was sewn by Ada on my bookshelf. It is a little rice ball. This isn't relevant at all, but I've actually been learning how to make rice balls from scratch, and it's so fulfilling, and I'm so good at them, and I have a salmon rice ball for lunch every single day now. Also, I forgot to mention that this is basically all the books on my TBR. Like, half the shelf I haven't read because these are all my new purchases and I don't really know where to group them yet. If you're watching this, you're thinking, oh my god, why hasn't she read any of these books? It's because I put all of my new books onto this shelf. These are some of my favorite books from this shelf though, because I have read, you know, the other half of them. And starting off with, we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I read this about 2 years ago. I haven't picked it up since because I don't want to go through that again. But yeah, this was, you know, as sad as everyone thought it was. I thought it was a really good retelling. I know that this was a very popular book. As a result, it got a lot of hate where people were like, oh my god, it's not even that sad, like it's so stupid, blah blah blah. I really think that you just have to read the book for yourself. Interpreter of Melodies by Jumbra Lahiri. This is a wonderful collection of short stories. I absolutely love this one. It also won the Pulitzer Prize, as you can see. Definitely one of my more like highbrow lit fic. All of the characters felt so human and realistic, and their stories, even though it seems very mundane, they hold a mirror to the real human experience. The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. It's just so integral to who I was 2 years ago. I remember when I first started high school, I was really obsessed with this book and really obsessed with that movie, and it's kind of a book that every person as a young teenager needs to read. This book does tell an important story on coming of age and figuring out who you are and sort of establishing yourself in society, you know, because you're starting to grow up, and even though it's scary and very depressing at times, it's what you have to do. The first two books in the Raven Cycle, I've been meaning to finish this series. I haven't yet. They both died at the end by Adam Silvera. I have read this. Song of Achilles and Circe by Madeline Miller. I have read both. Malibu Rising, Seven Husbands, and Daisy Jones and Six, all by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have read these two. I've been meaning to read this one, but I just got it for my birthday. Then we have The Atlas Six and Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. I have read this one. I have not read this one yet. Norwegian Wood, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. A Visit from the Goon Squad. All three of these I have have not read The Idiot by Elif Botman. I read like 15 pages of this and then I stopped. Interpretive Melodies. Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. I have not read this yet. Feel the Burn by Andrew Schaefer. I'm actually reading this right now. As you can see, I have my bookmark in it. I just put it back on the bookshelf for this video. It's usually on my nightstand or in my backpack. Born to Cry by Trevor Noah. I read this for English last year. World's Greatest Love Letters. Currently reading this. Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Obviously read it. Night Crawling by Layla Motley. And I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Both have not read this. Thousand Floor and Dazzling Heights. I read this one, and I have not read this one. Little Friend by Donna Tartt. Read 20 pages, stopped. An Abundance of Catherine's. Paper Towns, Fault in Our Stars, and Looking for Alaska, all by John Green. I have only read Looking for Alaska, and I did not like it that much, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Book Thief, I have read this. Calling the Nation and The World Without Us. I have not read either of these because I forgot I had these, to be honest. Oh look, who just woke up from his nap. Hello. We're finally on the last shelf now, which is the trashy YA fantasy books. And these are my, I guess, embarrassing books. Very 2012 to 2014 reminiscent books. Alright, I have one favorite book from this shelf, and it's The Selection. That is the only book I think is worth reading. Actually, my Parental Devices is good as a whole. I just don't remember anything from them. Selection, I remember every word. Badly written. The plot is terrible. The characters are terrible, but the romance is actually so fire. It is a guilty pleasure book, and I will always defend it until I die. Right, so yeah, as you can see, we have the entire Infernal Devices series. Fun fact, this used to be the entire Cassandra Clare books, but as soon as I got enough books to replace that, I got rid of all of them, and now they're sitting in my sister's room. Here, I did keep the Infernal Devices because I think that was the only series worth keeping. Then we have the entire Selection series, including Happily Ever After. The entire Red Queen series by Victoria Aveyard. The entire Divergent series. All these books, I hate them. Before I Fall, in 5 years, I have read both of these, and I hated this book. I hated it so much. I have not read If We Were Liars. Love Rosie. Fucking hate this book so much. 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I don't think we need to talk about how problematic this book is. Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Haven't read this. And New Kids by Brooke Hauser. Have not read this. To be honest, these two, I just, again, needed some place to put them. That is all of my books. All of them. Finally. That was my entire bookshelf tour. If you watched my last tour, then you'll know that my bookshelf has definitely changed a lot in the past year and a half. I'm really proud of my collection now. I know that I do have, you know, a certain amount of privilege to be able to afford this many books, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. I'm grateful to have a job to be able to, you know, buy as many books as I do. That's all I wanted to say. Again, I want to encourage you guys to shop sustainably. If you do have a habit of buying a lot of books, please buy them secondhand. That is all I wanted to say. If you watched this entire thing, thank you so much. I know it couldn't have been easy sitting through all of this. It hasn't been easy filming all this. But yeah, thank you so much. Subscribe, only if you want to though, and I will see you next time. Bye.